The Last Ember. Part 5. Dr. Minji stood before the interface, a complex web of quantum processors and neural connectors that would link her consciousness directly to the gate. Around her, medical equipment hummed and beeped. Sunhee checked vital signs one last time. Jisoo made final adjustments to the power systems. Taejin and Hyun stood by, witnesses to what was about to happen. The structure had been transformed. What was once just a wound in space was now a station, built by combined efforts of dozens of species. Humanity provided the guards. Everyone else provided support. It was cooperation born of necessity, but cooperation nonetheless. "You can still change your mind," Doyen said. "We can find someone else." "No," Minji said. "It has to be me first. I need to prove it works. Besides, I want to go." She didn't say why. Didn't mention Jiho again. But everyone knew. Somewhere in the quantum foam of the gate's structure, where consciousness became probability and time became negotiable, maybe she would find something, someone, or at least peace. 6 months, Sunhee said. "Then we pull you out. Don't try to stay longer. The neural stress could cause permanent damage." Minji nodded. She lay back on the interface bed. Technicians attached monitors to her head, her chest, her arms. The quantum processors came online, their light making strange patterns in the air. "Beginning connection," Jisoo announced. "Neural link in 3, 2, 1. Minji's eyes rolled back. Her body went rigid. For a moment, everyone thought something had gone wrong. Then the reading stabilized. Her consciousness had left her body and entered the gate's quantum structure. She was experiencing the space between spaces, the time between moments, and the silence stopped spreading. The quantum decay that had been consuming the galaxy simply halted. Stars that should have disappeared kept burning. Planets that should have been erased remained solid. It was working. One human mind holding the pattern that kept the gate closed. One person standing between the universe and oblivion. "How is she?" Doyen asked. Sunhee studied the readouts. "Stable. Brain activity is off the charts, but stable. She's perceiving things no human has ever perceived before. Multiple timelines. Probability fields. The fundamental structure of reality. Can she hear us? I don't know. But we should talk to her anyway. Maintain the connection. Remind her she's not alone," so they did. Every day, crew members would sit by the interface and talk, telling Minji about their day, about repairs to the station, about ships arriving and departing, about the galaxy slowly accepting that humanity had found a solution. The first week was the hardest. Several council species demanded the project be shut down. They didn't trust it. Didn't believe one human could hold back the entity. But the silence remained stopped. The proof was undeniable. By the second month, volunteers were arriving. Humans from across the galaxy, all wanting to join the vigil. They trained with Sunhee and Jisoo, learning the procedures. Not everyone was suitable. The quantum interface required a specific type of mind, one that could see patterns in chaos without being overwhelmed. But enough qualified. By the time Minji's 6 months were up, there were 50 humans ready to take their turn. The vigil would continue. When they disconnected Minji, she didn't wake up immediately. She lay unconscious for 3 days while her brain reorganized itself around normal perception. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she said was his name. "Jiho." Sunhee leaned forward. "What about Jiho?" "I found him. Not alive, not in any way we understand. But consciousness persists in quantum states. Everyone the silence consumed, everyone we thought was destroyed, they're there. Trapped in superposition. It will take time, maybe centuries, but with the gate stabilized, we might be able to recover them." Tears ran down her face. Not sad tears. Relieved tears. He's not gone. None of them are gone. The news spread like fire across the galaxy. Families who had lost loved ones to the silence suddenly had hope. It would be a long process requiring technology that didn't exist yet, but it was possible. Humanity had given the galaxy something it thought it had lost forever. Hyun took the second rotation. Before she connected, she made a playlist, 5,000 songs from Earth and 100 other worlds. Music to keep her company in the space between spaces. When she entered the interface, she said she could hear it all at once, every song playing simultaneously but somehow making sense together. Taejin went third. He said the entity tried to break through during his shift, pushing hard against the gate. But he held the line. It reminded him of his military days, holding position against impossible odds. Not because you knew you would win, but because someone had to stand there. Sunhee was fourth. She came back saying she had felt the suffering of the entity. Its billions of years of isolation. Its desperate need to exist. She didn't hate it anymore, just pitied it. And she wondered if someday, when they understood the quantum mechanics better, they might find a way to let it exist without destroying their universe. Not today. Maybe not for millions of years. But someday Jisoo went fifth. She said the gate's technology made sense now. She understood how it worked. And she had ideas for human technology based on what she'd learned. Engines that could fold space more efficiently. Shields that existed in multiple dimensions. The knowledge humanity gained from the vigil would advance their civilization by centuries. The years passed. The vigil became routine, a duty that thousands of humans volunteered for. Some did it once. Others, like Minji, returned for multiple rotations. They called themselves the Watchers, an informal organization of people who had seen beyond reality and come back changed. The galaxy adapted. Humanity's role shifted from newcomers to guardians. Other species began to respect them, not for being stronger or smarter or more advanced, but for being willing to do what needed to be done, for standing watch while everyone else slept safely. 20 years after the vigil began, Doyen visited the station one last time. He was an admiral now, in charge of humanity's deep space fleet. His hair had gone gray. His back hurt in the mornings, but his eyes were still sharp. Yun was on her 4th rotation. She had become one of the best watchers, able to hold the pattern longer than almost anyone. When they disconnected her, she described touching the entity's loneliness again, feeling its desperate longing for existence. "I don't hate it," she told Doyen. "None of us do. It's not evil, just trapped. Maybe that's the real human difference. We can hold the gate closed while still acknowledging the tragedy of what's on the other side." The station had grown. What started as a simple platform was now a city in space. Research labs studied the gate's properties. Universities taught about quantum consciousness. Young beings from dozens of species came to learn from Vigil veterans about perception, pattern, and meaning. The council had changed too. Elder Thane had stepped down, admitting that his species had been wrong to hide the truth. Younger voices now led the council. Voices that remembered what humanity had done. Not conquering through force. Not dominating through technology. But solving an impossible problem through creativity and sacrifice and the sheer refusal to give up. Minji returned for her 8th rotation. She had spent years developing technology to recover consciousness from quantum states. The first success came in year 18. A researcher from the lost colony ship New Dawn, pulled from superposition and restored to physical form. Confused, disoriented, but alive, more followed. Slowly, carefully. Each recovery was a miracle of science and patience. And Minji worked toward one specific goal, finding Jiho, bringing them back, not because she couldn't live without them, but because no one should be trapped forever if there was a choice. The galaxy entered a new age. Cooperation replaced competition. Species shared knowledge more freely. The eldest races finally released their ancient secrets, and humanity, the youngest species to join the council, became teachers, not of technology or warfare, but of resilience, of adaptation, of making impossible things possible through determination. The structure itself became a monument, a reminder of what happens when civilizations work together, when they face hard truths instead of avoiding them, when they choose service over safety. In year 25, a young woman named Yoonji prepared for her first vigil rotation. She was nervous. The interface was intimidating. The responsibility was enormous, but she had trained for this. Wanted this Admiral Doyen, now 70 years old, gave her the traditional blessing, words that had been spoken to every watcher since the vigil began. "Hold the line. We'll relieve you soon. You won't be alone." Yoonji smiled. "I know. No human ever is." She lay back on the interface. The quantum processors came online, and for 6 months she would exist between moments, holding back the dark, keeping the universe whole. Above the station, ships from 100 species went about their business. Trading, exploring, building, all possible because one species had been willing to stand watch. Not forever for one person, but shared among all who could. A duty that would last as long as the universe itself. The entity still pushed against the gate. Still tried to break through. It was ancient and desperate and powerful beyond measure. But on the other side, humans pushed back. Not with force or technology. With consciousness. With pattern. with the same stubbornness that had taken them from caves to starships in the blink of cosmic time. And the gate held. Day after day, year after year. The Last Ember, Part 4, the Prometheus Dawn fought its way back to the boundary of the eternal silence. It took 8 hours of hard flying, with Hyun pushing the engines beyond their design limits. Behind them, the structure pulsed with increasing desperation. The entity knew they had left. It was trying to call them back. When they finally crossed the boundary, the council ships were still waiting. Doyen immediately sent out a broadcast on all frequencies. Everything they had learned. The gate, the entity, the truth about the silence. He held nothing back. The response was chaos. Within hours, the message had spread across the entire galaxy. Every species heard it. Every government reacted. The council convened an emergency session, but they couldn't control the narrative anymore. The truth was out. Some species demanded the gate be opened. They wanted the knowledge the entity offered, even if it meant risking everything. Others wanted it sealed, though no one knew how. And some wanted to run, to flee to the furthest corners of the galaxy and hope the end came slowly. The council itself fractured. Species that had been allies for millions of years turned on each other. Some blamed the eldest races for hiding the truth. Others blamed humanity for forcing the issue. Violence broke out on 3 worlds. Ships were destroyed, ancient treaties shattered. Doyen watched it all from the Prometheus Dawn, now docked at a neutral station near the galactic core. His crew had become the most famous and most hated people in the galaxy. Some called them heroes. Others called them doombringers. In the crew's quarters, Taejin cleaned his weapons in silence. Sun-hee tried to eat but couldn't keep anything down. Hyun listened to her music at full volume, trying to drown out her own thoughts. And Minji hadn't left her lab in 3 days. "We should have stayed quiet," Jisoo said. She was repairing a circuit board that didn't need repairing, just to keep her hands busy. "Let someone else make the decision." "There is no one else," Doyen said. "That's what the council doesn't understand. They've been avoiding this choice for millions of years, passing it down to younger species. But we're the last ones. If we don't solve this, it doesn't get solved." A chime sounded. Incoming transmission from Elder Thane. Doyen accepted it. Thane's crystalline face appeared on the screen. He looked older somehow, though that should have been impossible for his species. "Captain Doyen, the council demands your presence. You will answer for your actions." "Answer for what? Telling the truth? For creating panic? For destroying the peace? For dooming us all?" Doyen laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We were already doomed. We just made you look at it." Thane's image flickered with anger. "The council has voted. If humanity cannot provide a solution within 1 month, your species will be exiled from council space. Permanently. And if we do provide a solution, that depends on the solution." Thane cut the transmission. Doyen sat alone in the empty room for a long time. 1 month. They had 1 month to save humanity's place in the galaxy. 1 month to solve a problem that the oldest civilizations in the universe couldn't solve in millions of years. He went to find Minji. She was in her lab, surrounded by holographic displays showing quantum equations that hurt to look at. Empty coffee cups littered every surface. She hadn't slept, hadn't showered, had barely spoken to anyone. "Minji," Doyen said gently, "you need to rest. I need to find the answer." Her voice was hoarse. "There has to be a way. Maybe there isn't. Maybe this is just how it ends." "No." Minji slammed her hand on the console. "I didn't come this far to give up. The entity showed us the problem, but it also showed us the key." "What key?" Minji pulled up a new display. Brain scans. Neural patterns. The data they had collected when they first proposed investigating the silence. "Human minds are different. We survived proximity to the gate when other species couldn't. We can perceive it in ways others can't. Our pattern recognition, our ability to create meaning from chaos, our consciousness itself interacts with the gate differently. So the gate responds to consciousness, to pattern, to meaning." Minji's eyes were wild with exhaustion and inspiration. "We can't destroy it with technology. We can't seal it with force, but maybe we can close it with thought." "I don't understand." "The gate is a quantum structure. It exists in superposition in multiple states at once. The entity is trying to collapse it into the open state by pushing from the other side. But what if someone held it in the closed state from this side? What if a human consciousness interfacing directly with the gate's quantum structure could hold the pattern that keeps it sealed. Doyen felt cold. You're talking about connecting someone's mind to that thing. Yes, it would kill them. Not kill. Transform. They would exist in superposition with the gate itself. Conscious but not conscious. Alive but not alive. They would become part of the seal. Forever? Minji's face was pale. Yes, forever. Doyen stared at the data on the screens. It was insane. It was horrifying. It might actually work. I'll do it, Minji said quietly. I volunteer. No, it has to be me. I understand the quantum mechanics better than anyone. And her voice broke. I have nothing left here. Jiho is gone, lost in the silence. If I can become part of the gate, maybe I can find them. In the space between thoughts, between moments, an eternity of consciousness doesn't frighten me if there's a chance. Doyen wanted to argue, wanted to find another way, but he saw the determination in her eyes. She had already made her choice. Let me think about it, he said. There has to be another way. But before he could leave, Taejin entered the lab. He had been listening from the doorway. Not one person, multiple people, taking shifts. Both Doyen and Minji turned to stare at him. Taejin continued. You said it would take someone's consciousness forever. But what if it's not one person forever? What if multiple people take turns holding the pattern? 6 months on, then recovery. Then someone else takes over. Minji's fingers flew across her keyboard, running calculations. It could work. The strain would be intense, but with proper medical support, a human mind could hold the pattern for months before needing relief. If we rotated people through, we could maintain the seal indefinitely, Doyen finished. It wouldn't be a sacrifice. It would be a duty. A duty humanity could sustain forever, Taejin said. It's not one person dying for everyone. It's all of us taking turns keeping everyone safe. Sunhee appeared in the doorway. I've been monitoring your conversations. Medical officer's prerogative. If we're doing this, I need to design support protocols, brain chemistry stabilizers, neural mapping, recovery procedures. Jisoo pushed past her into the lab. And I need to build the interface. Something that can connect a human brain to quantum structures without frying both. Hyun came last, leaning against the doorframe. And I'm volunteering to be in the first rotation. After Minji, obviously, Doyen looked at his crew. They had found the answer. Not through superior technology or ancient wisdom. Through pure human stubbornness. Through the refusal to accept that some problems had no solutions. We present this to the council, he said. But they won't trust us. They'll say we're asking for too much power, that humans could use our position at the gate to blackmail the galaxy. Then we prove we won't, Minji said. We set up oversight. Multiple species monitoring the process. Complete transparency. We're not asking to control the gate. We're volunteering to guard it. Will the council accept that? Sunhee asked. They won't have a choice, Taejin said. It's this or extinction. Over the next week, humanity's finest scientists and engineers worked with the crew of the Prometheus Dawn to refine the plan. They built the interface. They tested the procedures. They calculated every variable they could think of, and when they were ready, Doyen requested an audience with the full council. They met in the Great Hall of Axiom Prime, the same place where this had all begun. But this time the hall was packed, not just with council representatives, but with observers from every species. The younger races, the ones who remembered what it was like to be dismissed and underestimated, had demanded to be present. Doyen stood in the center of the hall and explained humanity's solution. The vigil, they called it, a rotating guard of human consciousness holding the gate closed, preventing the entity from breaking through, not forever for one person, but shared among all who volunteered. Elder Thane was the first to object. You ask us to trust humanity with the fate of the universe. What if you use this position to bargain? To threaten? One human at the gate could hold us all hostage. Then don't trust just us, Doyen said. Place monitors. Send observers. Test our volunteers. Make the entire process transparent. We're not asking for control. We're offering service. The debate raged for hours. Species argued for and against. But slowly something shifted. The younger races, the ones humanity had helped, the ones who saw themselves in humanity's determination, began to vote in favor. And then, for the first time in 8 million years, the young outvoted the old. The council approved the vigil. Humanity would guard the gate. The galaxy would watch and verify. And if humans betrayed that trust, the consequences would be absolute. Doyen looked at his crew. They had done it. They had found option 3. The option no one else had seen because no one else had been desperate or creative enough to look for it. Now they just had to prove it would work. The last ember, Part 3. Doyen tried to send a message back to the council ships waiting at the boundary. Static. Nothing but static. The quantum interference from the structure was too strong. They were alone now, completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. "We need to get closer to understand what we're dealing with," Minji said. She was recording everything, her equipment humming as it captured data that no one had ever seen before. "Closer?" Hyun looked at the view screen where the structure twisted in impossible ways. "We're already too close." "She's right," Doyen said. "If we want answers, we need to board that thing." Taejin was already checking his equipment. He pulled on his combat suit, a bulky thing designed for zero-gravity operations. "I'll go. This is what I do." "Not alone, son," he said. "If something happens, you'll need medical support." "I'm coming with you," Jisoo raised her hand. "You'll need an engineer too. If there's any technology over there, someone has to understand it." Minji stood. "And you'll need me to interpret the quantum readings." Doyen looked at his crew. They were all volunteering to step onto something that wasn't fully real, that existed between dimensions, that could kill them just by touching them wrong. "Hyun, you stay here. Keep the ship ready for emergency departure. If things go wrong, you leave without us." "Like hell I will," Hyun said. "That's an order." Hyun glared at him but nodded. Someone had to survive to tell what happened here. The away team loaded into the shuttle. It was a small craft, barely big enough for 4 people. Hyun piloted them away from the Prometheus Dawn toward the structure. As they got closer, the shuttle's instruments started acting strange. The navigation system thought they were moving backward. The altimeter said they were underground. The clock started running in reverse. "This is impossible," Hyun muttered. "But I'll get you there," she did. With pure instinct and feel, she guided the shuttle to what looked like an opening in the structure's surface. The shuttle touched down on something that might have been solid. "Might have been." "Good luck," Hyun said as the team prepared to exit. "Try not to die." "We'll do our best," Taejin said. They stepped out of the shuttle onto the structure's surface. It felt like walking on frozen dreams. The material under their feet was solid, then soft, then solid again. Colors shifted. Up and down seemed negotiable. Gravity pulled in directions that didn't exist. "Stay together," Taejin ordered. He had his weapon drawn, though he doubted it would help against whatever they might find here. They walked deeper into the structure. The walls around them were covered in patterns that might have been writing, or might have been decoration, or might have been the structure's equivalent of veins. Minji recorded everything, her scientific mind trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Then the vision started. Each member of the team saw something different, pulled from their own minds and memories. Taejin saw battles. Every fight he had ever been in, every enemy he had killed, every friend he had lost. But mixed in were battles he had never fought. Future conflicts. Humanity at war with species that didn't exist yet. Blood and fire and screaming that went on forever. He stumbled, nearly fell. Son, he caught his arm. "Stay with us." "It's not real. It's just in your head." But was it? The structure was reading them, pulling their memories and fears into reality. Or something like reality. Sun He saw suffering, patients dying despite her best efforts, plagues and pandemics, humanity's history of disease written in corpses, children crying, parents grieving, all the pain she had tried to heal over her career, flowing through her mind in an endless stream. Tears ran down her face inside her helmet. She kept walking. Jisoo saw survival. Humanity building and breaking and building again. Cave dwellers making fire. Engineers constructing ships. Inventors creating solutions from nothing. All of human history was a story of fixing things that were broken, of making things work that shouldn't. She saw herself among them, just another human refusing to give up. She smiled despite the tears. They came from survivors. They would keep surviving. But Minji saw something different. She broke away from the group, drawn toward the center of the structure by something she couldn't resist. The others called after her, but she couldn't stop. She had to see. Had to know. "Minji, wait!" Doyen ran after her. The rest of the team followed. They found her standing at the edge of an enormous chamber. At its center was the gate itself. A tier in space that led somewhere else, somewhere that wasn't part of their universe. And through that tier something was pushing. Something vast and ancient and desperate. It's beautiful, Minji whispered. Doyen grabbed her shoulder. Minji, we need to go back. No, look. She pointed at the gate. It's trying to communicate, and it was. The entity on the other side had noticed them. It reached out through the gate, not with hands or tentacles or anything physical, but with thought. With consciousness itself. And in that moment, the entire away team understood. The entity was a survivor from the previous universe. Before the Big Bang that created their reality, there had been another universe. And when that universe collapsed, this entity had been caught between dimensions, trapped in a space that wasn't space, existing but not existing, conscious but unable to act. For billions of years, it had been alone. Completely, utterly alone, and its loneliness was so vast, so profound that it leaked through the gate. The eternal silence wasn't destruction. It was the entity's isolation made manifest, its desperate calling for someone, anyone, to acknowledge it. It just wants to exist again, son, he said, tears streaming down her face. The entity's pain was overwhelming. It's been trapped for so long. The entity showed them something then. What it could offer if they let it through. Knowledge beyond imagination. The secrets of previous universes. How to transcend biological limits. How to travel between dimensions. How to survive forever. All humanity's problems solved in an instant. All they had to do was open the gate fully. Let it through. Give it form in their universe again. We could save everyone, Jisu said. With that knowledge, we could solve everything. But Minji was working on her calculations, her mind racing through the quantum mathematics. She saw the truth that the entity wasn't showing them, couldn't show them because it didn't understand. If it comes through fully, our universe ends, she said. The quantum incompatibility between its nature and ours would cascade. Reality would unravel. Maybe not immediately, but within a few decades. Everything would cease to exist. Are you sure? Toyun asked. Yes. Minji's voice was certain. The gate is already damaged. That's what's causing the silence. The entity is trying to break through, and every time it pushes, more of our reality tears apart. If we let it through completely, if we give it what it wants, we doom our entire universe. Teijin raised his weapon toward the gate. Then we destroy it. We can't, Minji said. The gate is part of space-time itself. Destroying it would be like trying to destroy gravity. It's fundamental. Then what do we do? Sunhee asked. I don't know. Minji looked at the gate, at the entity pushing through from the other side. We need more information. The entity showed them something else then. Memories that weren't its own. The structure had been here since the universe began, and this wasn't the first time something had reached it. 23 times before, civilizations had found the gate. 23 times they had faced this choice. And 23 times they had forced the entity back, sealed the gate as best they could, and returned home. But the gate was weakening. Each time the entity pushed, each time it was forced back, the seal grew thinner. This was the final cycle. Either the entity broke through completely, or someone found a way to close the gate permanently. The council knew, Doyen said, understanding flooding through him. The eldest races. They've known about this for millions of years. They let younger civilizations discover it so they wouldn't have to make the choice themselves. They're cowards, Teijin said. They're old, Minji corrected. They've lived so long that the weight of moral decisions has broken them. So they pass the burden to others. The entity reached out to them again, showing them one more thing. It wasn't evil. It wasn't trying to destroy. It was just lonely. Just desperate. Just wanting to exist in a way it could no longer remember. And in its desperation, it would end everything without meaning to. We have to go back, Doyen said. We have to tell the council what we found. Will they listen? Sunhee asked. They have to. Doyen looked at the gate one last time, because if they don't, everyone dies. The team returned to the shuttle in silence. Each of them carried the weight of what they had learned. The entity's loneliness, the impossible choice, the knowledge that their universe hung by a thread that was about to break. As they flew back to the Prometheus dawn, Minji made more calculations. There had to be an answer. Had to be a way. But everything she tried ended the same way. Let the entity through and reality ends. Leave it trapped and eventually it breaks through anyway. Unless they found option 3, something no one had thought of before, something human. The last ember, part 2, the Prometheus dawn cut through space like a needle through fabric. Behind them, 5 council observer ships followed at a careful distance. Their job was to watch and record. They would stop at the boundary of the eternal silence and wait. They expected the human ship to cross the border and disappear like all the others. Doyen sat in the captain's chair, watching the view screen. They had been traveling for 2 weeks. The ship hummed with quiet efficiency around him. Ahead, the stars began to thin out. Not because there were fewer of them, but because the silence was consuming them faster than light could travel. Hyun sat at the pilot's console, her hands dancing across the controls. Music played softly from her personal speaker, a violation of council protocols. Most alien species found human music disturbing. Too emotional, they said. Too unpredictable. But Hyun said she couldn't fly without it, and Doyen wasn't about to argue with the best pilot he had ever seen. The song was old, from Earth. Something with strings and drums and a voice that sang about not giving up. Hyun hummed along while she adjusted their course to avoid a debris field from a dead civilization. "How long until we reach the boundary?" Doyen asked. 6 hours, Hyun said. "The council ships are already slowing down. They'll stop about 5 light minutes before the border." In the engineering section below, Jisoo was doing something the council engineers said was impossible. She had rewired the quantum shielding to draw power from the ship's waste heat instead of the main reactor. It meant they could run the shields longer without draining their primary systems. The council engineers who had inspected the ship said it would explode. Jisoo said they worried too much. Taejin moved through the ship like a ghost, checking every corridor and access panel. He was looking for weak points, places where the ship might fail under stress. Old military habit: trust nothing until you've personally verified it. He stopped in the medical bay where Sunhee was organizing supplies. "How are the stasis pods?" he asked. "Functioning perfectly," Sunhee said. "If anyone gets injured, I can keep them stable for weeks. But I'd rather not need them." We all would. Taejin picked up a medical scanner and turned it over in his hands. "You ever wonder why we're doing this? The council doesn't care if we live or die." "I know." Sunhee took the scanner back and placed it carefully in its case. "But maybe that's why we have to. Because no one else will." Up in the research lab, Dr. Minji had not slept in 3 days. She stared at screens covered in data, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The quantum signatures from the silence played across her displays like frozen music. There was a pattern here. She could feel it. Something just beyond her understanding, waiting to be discovered. She didn't talk about why she was really here, about the colony ship New Dawn that had disappeared into the silence 8 months ago, about Jiho, her partner, who had been on that ship. The council said everyone on the New Dawn was dead, gone, erased from existence. But Minji didn't believe that. Couldn't believe that. If the silence was intelligent, if it was purposeful, then maybe people weren't being destroyed. Maybe they were being taken somewhere. It was foolish hope. She knew that. But hope was the only thing keeping her moving forward. The intercom crackled. Doyen's voice came through. "All crew to the bridge. We're approaching the boundary." Minji saved her work and headed up. When she arrived, the entire crew had gathered. On the view screen, they could see the council ships stopping, their engines firing reverse thrust. Beyond them was the border of the eternal silence. It looked like nothing. Just empty space. But the instruments told a different story. Quantum fields twisted and broke. Gravity fluctuated wildly. Reality itself seemed uncertain about what it was supposed to be doing. "The council ships are hailing us," Hyun said. "Put them through." Elder Thane's crystalline face appeared on the screen. "Human vessel, this is your last chance to turn back. Cross that boundary and we cannot help you." "We know," Doyen said. "That's always been true, hasn't it? Humanity has always been on our own. Your recklessness will accomplish nothing but your deaths. Maybe, or maybe will accomplish what your caution never could." Doyen gestured to Hyun. "Cut transmission. Take us in." The music on Hyun's speaker changed to something faster, with more drums. She grinned. "Now this is flying." Her hands moved across the controls and the Prometheus Dawn accelerated toward the boundary. The moment they crossed, everything changed. The lights flickered. The hull groaned. Every instrument started giving different readings, arguing with each other about what was real. But the ship kept moving. The quantum shielding Minji had designed held firm. "Status report," Doyen ordered. "Main power stable," Jisoo's voice came through from engineering. "Shields holding at 92%. Whatever's out here, we can handle it." For now, Tejan added. He had strapped himself into the tactical station. Sensors are picking up debris. Lots of it. The view screen adjusted to show what he meant. Ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They floated dead in the emptiness, some intact, others torn apart. The oldest were so ancient that Minji's database couldn't identify what species had built them. They all came looking for answers, Minji said quietly. Just like us. And they all died, Sun He added. Their crews. There are bodies in some of those ships, preserved by the cold. Hyun guided them carefully through the graveyard of vessels. Every culture in the galaxy was represented here. Some ships were only decades old. Others had been here for millions of years. The silence didn't care how advanced you were. It took everyone equally. I'm detecting something, Minji said, leaning over her console. Energy readings concentrated not from the dead ships. From something else. Where? Toyin asked, deeper in. About 3 light hours ahead. Minji's fingers flew across her keyboard. It's massive. Bigger than a planet. And it's the source of the quantum signatures we detected. That's our target, Doyen said. Hyun, get us there. The journey deeper into the silence took 6 hours. As they traveled, the crew started feeling something. Not hearing it exactly. Not seeing it. But present in their minds like a memory they couldn't quite recall. A sense of being watched, of being called. Is anyone else experiencing psychological effects? Sun He asked. She was monitoring everyone's vital signs. Your brain activity is all over the place. I hear something, Hyun said. Like music. But not music. Does that make sense? No, Taijin said. But I feel it too. Like someone calling my name from far away. Minji nodded. It's the quantum entanglement. The silence isn't just destroying matter. It's reaching into our minds. Reading us somehow. Should we turn back? Doyen asked. No. Minji's voice was firm. We're close. I can feel it. Then they saw it. The structure appeared on their screens like a wound in space itself. It was impossible to look at directly. The eye kept sliding off it, unable to focus. But the instruments showed its true size. It was enormous. Larger than a solar system. Made of something that was both matter and energy and neither. What is that? Hyun whispered. I don't know, Minji said. But I think it's what's causing everything. The silence. The disappearances. All of it comes from there. They moved closer. The structure came into better focus. It was damaged. Cracks ran across its surface, leaking something that looked like liquid darkness. Where the darkness touched normal space, that space ceased to exist. It's not a weapon, Minji said, understanding flooding through her. It's a door, a gate between dimensions, and something on the other side is trying to break through. Taijin checked his weapons. Can we destroy it? I don't think so, Minji said. It's older than the universe. It might be older than time itself. Doyen stared at the structure on the screen. They had come looking for answers. They had found something beyond comprehension. A gate to somewhere else. And whatever was on the other side was pushing so hard against the door that reality itself was breaking. We need to get closer, Minji said. We need to understand what it wants. Or what's trying to get through, Sun He added. The ship moved forward, into the shadow of something that should not exist. And in their minds, they all felt it. The calling. The presence. Something ancient and desperate and impossibly lonely. Something that had been trapped for longer than stars had been burning. Something that was about to break free. Doyen gripped the arms of his chair. Record everything. Whatever happens next, the council needs to know. But deep down he wondered if anyone would be left to tell. The Great Hall of Axiom Prime had never been so quiet. Representatives from 847 different species sat in their designated sections, watching the holographic display at the center of the chamber. The display showed a map of the galaxy, and on that map a growing darkness consumed everything it touched. Captain Doyen stood at the entrance, his uniform still dusty from 3 weeks of hard travel. His ship, the Prometheus Dawn, had crossed half the galaxy to bring his findings here. The guards had tried to stop him. Humans were not invited to emergency sessions. Humans were too new, too young, too emotional to understand matters of galactic importance. But Doyen had pushed past them anyway, and now he walked down the central aisle while every alien eye turned to watch him. The darkness on the map was called the Eternal Silence. For the past 200 years it had been eating stars, not exploding them or dimming them, actually making them disappear. Entire solar systems would simply stop existing. No explosion, no debris, no radiation. Just nothing. The Council had studied it for decades. They had sent probes. They had sent ships. Nothing came back. Elder Thane rose from his seat. He was an architect, one of the silicon-based species that had existed for millions of years. His crystalline body reflected the light from the hologram, making him look like he was made of colored glass. His voice echoed through the chamber like rocks grinding together. "Human, you were not summoned. You have no authority here." Doyen stopped in the center of the hall. He pulled a data chip from his pocket and held it up. "I have something you need to see." "We have seen enough," Thane said. "The silence cannot be stopped. We have voted to begin evacuation protocols for all systems within 1,000 light-years of the affected zone. Your species will be relocated to the outer territories." "Relocated?" Doyen felt anger rising in his chest. "You mean kicked out? Sent to the edge of the galaxy where nobody else wants to live?" A rippling sound came from the water-filled tank, where Matriarch Velis of the Deepborn resided. Her translated voice was calm and cold. "It is for your own safety. Your colonies are too close to the expanding zone. We cannot protect you." "You're not trying to protect us," Doyen said. "You're trying to save yourselves time. But I found something. Something that proves the silence isn't natural." The chamber erupted in clicks, whistles, and electronic tones as species argued among themselves. Hive Master Tiktan, whose insect body was covered in metallic implants, raised several arms for silence. "Explain yourself, human, quickly." Doyen activated the data chip. New images appeared in the hologram. Wave patterns, energy readings, quantum signatures that looked like music written in mathematics. "My crew detected these near the border of the silence. They repeat every 73 hours. Natural phenomena don't repeat with that kind of precision. Something is making this happen. Something intelligent." Thane's crystalline face showed no emotion, but his voice carried dismissal. 20 species have made similar claims. All were proven wrong. The silence is a natural decay of space-time itself. It cannot be reasoned with or stopped. Then why is it accelerating? Doyen pointed at the map. 3 months ago it consumed 1 system per year. Now it's taking 1 per week. If it's natural decay, it should be constant. But it's not. It's purposeful. The hall went silent. Even the translator devices seemed to pause. Velis spoke first. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we stop running and start investigating. Send a team to the border. Find out what's really happening." Laughter. Not human laughter, but the alien equivalent. Chirps and buzzes and electronic static that all meant the same thing. Mockery. Thane spoke over it. "Impossible. No technology survives proximity to the silence. Ships lose power. Communications fail. Crews become disoriented and unable to function. It is a death sentence. For you, maybe." Doyen gestured toward the entrance. Through the doors came Dr. Minji, carrying a portable display unit. She walked quickly, her lab coat flapping behind her. She was humanity's chief scientist, the woman who had developed the quantum shielding that allowed human ships to travel faster than most council vessels. She activated her display without asking permission. New data filled the hologram. Brain scans, neural patterns, quantum field interactions. We tested human neural activity near silence-affected areas. Our brains show natural resistance to the quantum decay that disrupts alien technology and biology. We don't know why yet, but the pattern is consistent across all human subjects. "Impossible," Thane repeated, but his voice was less certain now. Minji continued. "It might be because human brains evolved to find patterns in chaos. We see meaning where there is none. We create stories to explain the unexplainable. Maybe that mental flexibility protects us from whatever the silence does to more logical minds." Tiktan leaned forward. His compound eyes reflected the hologram 1,000 times. "You are saying your irrationality is an advantage?" "I'm saying our creativity might be." Minji looked around the chamber. "You've all been approaching this as a problem to solve with logic and technology. But what if that's the wrong approach? What if it requires thinking that doesn't follow straight lines? More arguing. Some species called it dangerous. Others called it foolish. But some of the younger races, the ones who had only been part of the council for a few thousand years, started asking questions. What if the humans were right? What if there was a chance?" Elder Thane raised his arms for silence. "Very well. The council will grant humanity 1 opportunity. You have 6 months to investigate the silence and return with actionable findings. If you fail, Or if you do not return, humanity's colonies will be evacuated as planned. Your species will be relocated. This is the Council's mercy. Doyen wanted to argue that it wasn't mercy at all, but he knew when to stop pushing. We accept. You will need a crew, Velis said. Choose carefully. Few volunteers will join a suicide mission. Doyen smiled. I already have my crew. Over the next 3 days, the Prometheus Dawn prepared for departure. Doyen's crew assembled in the ship's briefing room. Hyun, the pilot, sat with her feet up on the table chewing on a ration bar. She was the best pilot in the human fleet, capable of flying through asteroid fields with her eyes closed. Literally. She had done it on a bet once. Jisoo, the engineer, was already taking apart a control panel to optimize the plasma flow. She always had grease on her hands and a solution to every problem, even if her solutions made alien engineers faint with horror at the safety violations. Taejin, the combat specialist, stood by the door. He was a wall of muscle and scars, a veteran of the contact wars when humanity first met hostile species. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. Sunhee, the medical officer, reviewed crew health data on her tablet. She had gentle hands and a sharp mind, and she had saved more lives than anyone could count. And Dr. Minji stood by the holographic display, already lost in the data, barely aware anyone else was in the room. Doyen looked at them, his crew, his friends. Everyone understands what we're doing? This could kill us. The Council expects it to kill us. Hyun grinned. Then let's not die. Jisoo didn't look up from her work. We've faced worse odds. Taejin just nodded once. Sunhee smiled. We're ready. Minji finally looked up. The Prometheus Dawn leaves in 4 hours. I suggest everyone get some rest. It's a long journey to the edge of everything. As the crew dispersed, Doyen stood alone in the briefing room looking at the star map. The darkness waited at the edge of the galaxy, consuming everything it touched. 6 months. That was all they had. 6 months to save humanity's place among the stars. 6 months to prove that humans belonged here. He shut off the display and went to prepare his ship. The Council thought they were sending humans to die. Maybe they were right. But humans had a habit of surviving things that should kill them. It was, after all, what they did best.